Yeah.
Well, Ethan, why don't you introduce the topic for just a second?
That's
Only
right.
a second
Let
you
me
get to
write-
introduce it.
Yeah.
That's right. So, like Spencer said earlier at the top of the show,
Top of the morning.
yeah, the topic of the podcast episode this week was like about menswear community and friends, and it's kind of a follow up to all of the things you've talked about. It kind of was inspired initially because Spencer was like, oh, well, why don't we talk about the different groups that we've been in? I know Ivan's talked about that before. We talked about Ivy style and everything, and then when we were talking with all just about Slouch, there was that, we're kind of missing something, right? Where we can't. It's kind of hard to think that just putting your hands in your pocket, slouching around, is enough to make you approachable in menswear. And I think what we were missing, and that was the topic of this podcast, was being around a good community where it does make sense that you're wearing this clothes. And that's what we talk about. You can listen to the episode where it's just me and Spencer talking, but I thought now we would talk with our actual community, which is all of us here, and more.
And more.
But yeah. But first, I mean, let's think about this a little bit. But like, before Spencer and I started making more friends, before MJ got into this, like we did, me and Spencer didn't really have anybody,
No friends.
I mean, I guess we had like Jay, but Jay's kind of like MJ, right? Where it's kind of like a more casual enthusiast.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That's right.
Pretty much.
Thanks. I don't know. It was interesting because, like, I don't know. Did we talk about how you and I met on the podcast? Did we mention it?
I'm sure we mentioned it at some point. Yeah.
Maybe the first.
Yeah,
bonus.
I mean, I guess.
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe one of the first bonus episodes.
Yeah.
But to recap, right? Like, I think, we'd seen each other post and on the Fedora Lounge, which was my first real like online community that I was a part of. Not the web. I mean, I guess the website, but more group, right?
Yeah.
And I think I friended Spencer, and I was like, and then he messaged me like, "Hey, what's up?" And I'm like,
you
"Hey."
messaged me first. I'm pretty sure you messaged first.
Sure, whatever. But then I think you said, "Hey, I'm gonna go get I'm gonna get waffles at this place. Do you want to come?"
Yeah.
And I said, "Can I bring a friend?" Because I was like, I've never hung out with one person like this before. And I brought my friend Jeremiah, who was like also vaguely into clothes at the time too, and it was fun.
Yeah,
it was a lot of fun, and that's how it started. And
we started a podcast.
For a while, it was just me and Spencer. And Spencer would sometimes hang out with me at my church, and we would take pictures in the alleyway of the little strip mall where we would get lunch. And vintage events together, and we would talk to each other because everyone else was old. I mean, it's also like, like something we talked about in the podcast too was like we just lacked people that shared interests outside of clothes, right? Like we wanted people who liked clothes and the same things. Right, like
we wanted people that liked clothes, but also liked everything else, the things around the clothes.
Because it'd be like I mean, some of the vintage people don't even own a TV, right? Like Benny didn't even own a TV.
Yeah.
What's your furniture pointed at? Like nothing.
Each other.
It's wicker furniture.
Yeah, weird. Yeah, I don't know. Like, did you, Spencer? Did you talk to like other people like on Instagram DMs? Did you ever like do that?
Not much. But that's also because, as anyone who knows me knows, I find any communication outside of like phone calls or person to person just exhausting. So I wasn't in the habit of like messaging people on Instagram unless I was like in a group chat or something already.
But did no one ever like message you? I guess you didn't really have like a crazy like online presence, right?
Not
like it was all
really,
just
no.
chat shots.
Yeah.
On here
exactly.
For a long time. See, I think I was always used to it because of how like quote infamous I was on the Fedora Lounge because like it was like so I like like that what do you call it? The strip mall photos were always like so popular, and then, so I did get like DMs and everything every once in a while, but yeah, I guess it was kind of fun, and I think it kind of translated over to regular menswear. The more it happened. I'm trying to think of like of people I've talked to, people that I've met that wasn't through like going to hang out with Drakes or whatever. Actually, yes, there was one guy. So I started posting on Tumblr like my outfits, and this was like like I said in the podcast episodes before, I wasn't super into hashtag menswear. Like I never saw Chase on it. I never saw Kiyoshi on Tumblr. I never saw like a lot of other people. I would see occasionally pictures from the Armory, from B and Taylor, reblogged by other guys, but it was like so many layers removed. Like it was. I had to like find out later, but there was one guy who messaged me, and we became a little bit of friends. I remember his name on his Tumblr was Jake Blazer. Really
Jake
original.
Blazer.
just your name and the thing you like to wear.
Name's Jeffrey Ty.
Oh
yeah.
I'm Jason.
But yeah, no. It was what was it called? Yeah, it was like the first person I could talk to about like contemporary menswear, because I was the one kind of showing Spencer like B and Taylor and Armory stuff, But this guy already knew that, We talked about like Blake Scott, who's like that influencer, and we talked about how we didn't like him. And yeah, then I don't know how all just fell into the mix there. I think he probably messaged me on Facebook or Instagram or something. And I got to talk to his friends like Kelvin and Zane, so Zanification, and Derek, one of the first interviewees on the podcast as well, who we got to hang out with in New York. But yeah, like it was a little bit, we tried to make a community happen, because still in like early 2017 we just didn't have as many friends, and we did have a friend in the vintage scene, but we're not going to talk about that. But yeah, I don't know. Let's talk to Matt now. Matt, did you ever have a group of friends or anything that you got into?
Did you ever have friends?
Did
I ever
once had a friend?
Did I ever have a group of friends I got into?
Did you?
With menswear?
Oh, I see, in menswear. I didn't really know, because when I started all this, I listened to the pod, and then I eventually wormed my way into your guys' little thing, little group, and so that happened for a little bit, and then it just kept. I wormed it, and then it opened up, and here we are, all these years later. And eventually, when I worked at Brooks Brothers, that was a little. I've described this before, but sort of my first IRL little community, where you just kind of like, it's a version you can finally tell someone about this stuff, and just like, just show them, and like do menswear-y things, wear ties and go to a pizza place after work, all that stuff, So, but I still found that the online part has been a little bit more substantial, obviously, and just nice being able to talk to it, because I really didn't have anyone I could just like fully express all this excitement and interest in menswear before. It just like always to a point, and then they really wouldn't get it or whatever, like the meme. But no, this has been I pretty much just found my place here, and it's great.
Well, welcome.
Yeah, I mean, welcome. Now that I think about it, right, like one of the first critiques I got on Reddit was like, "What are you wearing these outfits to?" And I'm like, to hang out with my friends, and it's like people could not believe
fuck your wife.
that there were other people that are like this.
Yeah.
Oh.
It's I mean, have you guys never gotten that?
Those people think
really,
like, oh.
I mean, I don't know. Maybe you guys. I mean, I guess because I'm posting on Reddit, maybe.
Well, I didn't. I mean, I'm sure. I'm sure people wondered that. But yeah, I wasn't messaged that a whole lot.
Yeah.
Well, like I tell me that you're so dressed up for today.
I mean, people at a certain point were just like, "Oh, Spencer, he likes dressing up." Like that was.
He's a little cuck.
I guess that, but like I guess because that's school though, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like that's people you see on a regular basis,
exactly.
As opposed to like Because whenever we talk with like Aldous, I can kind of see what he's talking about. Where occasionally you do get someone who is just so incredulous, and
yeah, I kind of yeah.
They also don't know enough about you, right? Like they don't know you on Instagram, but they might see something and they'll be like, "What the fuck is happening?" It just blows their mind.
Yeah, I kind of get what you're saying now, where it's like, yeah, there are people that like, if they don't know me and they just like see it, but like then they just get very like, oh, what are you? And I've always like when I wear jeans, people get surprised by jeans, and it never makes sense. But yeah, I've had a fortunate experience with my education that I've usually worked in departments where I know the people, so they usually get the deal pretty quickly. But even if they're not in it, like you guys say all the time, you hang out with friends who are not as necessarily into menswear, but they don't scoff at you. They just they treat it like anything else, like you're wearing anything. But even if they don't do it themselves, they get the deal. So that's also refreshing, even if they're not in it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, MJ, what was it like hanging out with me back in the day before you got into it? I mean, I guess I still was smart. I didn't wear like a fucking 3-piece suit when I hung out with you guys.
Yeah. I mean, basically, well, if you did, we didn't notice, or I didn't notice.
That's good.
Or didn't care. I mean, I basically moved from one half of our friend group to the other half. Not, not saying that. I'm not saying that there's a division, like,
Yeah.
as far as being friends in our friend group, but like. I mean, it was like it was seamless,
Yeah.
What
was it like then for you? Yeah, going, from or getting into like an existing community now, because you started coming with me to like these events, or going to Inspiration and everything.
Mm-hmm. It was good. It was. I mean, when I like get into stuff, like into hobbies. Like, I think a lot of people get hyper fixated on like, a lot of things.
Right.
But this was like one of the things that I was like really, because I mean, we're looking at clothes and we're like thinking of clothes like a lot because, maybe not so much me now because I don't go out unless it's like for work.
Yeah.
But like having that kind of like understanding or like learning about clothes is, I mean, it's fun. So I want to keep doing it, basically.
Well, yeah, that's the thing, right? Because if you don't have like a community, you have the chance of like doing your own independent like progress, but there's a chance where you could kind of stay the same and do more of the same, and not to say you won't progress, but like having an actual community to bounce off of and see what other people are doing and engage with that, then you really kind of grow as a dresser.
And that's what that's. Go ahead, MJ.
Like Matt said, like a lot of other communities, finding other people that get it, and you kind of can play off of each other ideas or inspos, stuff like that. It's like it's a never ending story,
Because it might not be. There might be the Ivy versus the workwear. They might have their different thing, but you can still take and cherry pick. Best from each side.
Well, I was gonna say, I think that maybe because we're Spencer and MJ and I, we're all we're nerds. We have these other weird hobbies too, right? Like not Star Wars, but like okay, with MJ, like playing Super Smash Bros, right? Like, yeah, you could play it with your friends, but eventually you start wanting to play with other people because you want to get better. You don't want to just learn how to beat your friend. You want to learn how to get some new strategies, and so you go
how to beat God.
Yeah. But so then you go to like tournaments. You don't have to go to like a crazy tournament. You can go to like a local thing, or maybe like one of your maybe one of your other friends, like invite some other guys to come play video games with. And there's an idea of like yeah, but I mean it's like also like that idea of finding people who get it, right? Like I'm thinking of let's talk about like photography for a second, right? Like I don't know if you guys, I know MJ knows this, but like you go to like the Asian Creative Network stuff, or like those Instagram photo walks, and it's like it's the same hobby, but like you realize at a certain point, like, okay, they're not really getting what I want from this hobby, and so you keep looking until you find the people who share that hobby, but in the same way. I think every single community hobby interest has stuff like that, where like film score, there's Reddit posts all about like Hans Zimmer or whatever, but then you got to find the people who like analyze it and like it and know and discuss it the way you want it, So I think I've always been used to that, but clothing is harder because it's tied to so much what do you call it, like there's so much
nuance,
the subtleties, but also like there's like baggage with it, right? Like wearing a suit is kind of like, okay, what, like, are you going to a funeral, or going to like a job interview or whatever? And so it's a little bit harder to find those guys, but then when you do, it's like you guys click like instantly. And I'm very glad that that you guys have we've all become really, really good friends, and that I'm assuming because we all approach clothing in similar ways, not the exact same way, but that it provides a very like encouraging.
No, because we're not carbon copies of each other. We have our own individual voices, but we all come from the same school of thought. I think, at least, the same general sensibilities when dressing.
Absolutely. I want to address something in the chat, and I turned off the chat from my computer because I didn't want the stream to kill my internet. But Dave said here, none of my friends like menswear really share his taste. A lot of them are stuck in the Abercrombie and Fitch circa 2004 style.
Wow.
Or H&M Euro look. None of them are willing to spend any money on clothing, even if they are making fairly large salaries. I don't know if how I dress makes them feel uncomfortable, but my neuroticism really makes me tone down my dress whenever I hang out with them. Yeah, and as Kiyoshi says, like, yeah, we this is pretty common for like menswear. I think, like at a certain point, you stop wearing like the 3-piece suits or like full tailoring when you're with your friends. Not just because of the neuroticism thing of like fitting in, but also like, maybe you want to expand your style, and it's a good. Hanging out with regular friends who are not into menswear are a good, like not or good. What do you call it?
Opportunity
or driving force for you to kind of, okay, what else do I want? But yeah, I mean, as soon as Spencer started getting more into rugged stuff, I was like, okay, I gotta find a way to not wear it tight all the time. Yeah. Especially like hanging out with like Doug and everything too, right? Like other friends who have different styles. And there's still that opportunity too, where like, I can say this, right? When I first started playing Super Smash Bros, I would play Zero Suit Samus for a while, and then eventually you want to start trying new things because Scott has a fun, weird style, MJ has like an interesting style, and now I started playing Pac-Man because it's like a fun, weird character that makes sense for me, and I know how to use it, and it still is like quirky enough. It doesn't feel as like try hard as like. Well, no offense to MJ, but like playing Link all the time, where like it's a more straightforward character.
Hey,
what I
mean? He's mid-tier at best.
Link is pretty great.
Play Fox? Is he still the top choice for competitive Smash Bros?
Who was?
Yeah,
Fox.
Yeah, I mean, Fox is just Fox.
Fox is Fox, man.
Well, yeah, no, I think that definitely communities help expand yourself. I mean, we talked about this in the podcast episode, but I can't imagine how much exploration, not just me, but Spencer and MJ and everyone else has done if they weren't in a community, or had people to bounce stuff off of. I mean, what if I had stayed as like #menswear with fun socks and Aldo shoes,
Yeah.
I would.
I put in the chat. I think it's not off the stream yet, but I commented Rising Tide raises all ships.
Yeah.
I like to use that a lot, both ironically and unironically. But I mean, it's true, right? Like, I mean, like you said earlier, how Spencer, when he started to get into more rugged menswear, and then you looked at it and it's like, oh, okay, like that maybe that's something you would like, or that's something that you could take some stuff from, and then we see it because you post stuff in Discord, and then it's just we're all cooler now.
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody.
I mean, like I got the short coat. I short coats too, right? So
exactly.
it's a good feedback kind of a thing, and then even when you're not on like the beginning part of the journey, I think there's still a lot to get inspired from. Seeing when Kyoshi puts like is it Nepenthes? Is that how I say it? Nepenthes.
I don't know.
Nepenthes. Okay, there you go. That's it. But yeah, stuff like that, like stuff that I had seen before, but I never really I don't follow it. But then seeing stuff like that, like, okay, I gotta wear like more all black stuff. Maybe like entertain the ideas of like slip-ons, or find other ways to incorporate what you're seeing. So, but yeah, it's been fun if you have it in person, which is sometimes better because then it gives you more context. But online is good too. But yeah, how about let's talk to Kiyoshi now, because you were in the #menswear era as a Tumblr person.
I'm an
You
old
tumbled.
No.
Tell us about what that was like. Talking with
Back
Derek
in the day,
and Fox Sartoria and Cantabrigan, and
You
style
can't go
fo
right.
hashtag style fo guy, stuff like that.
yeah. So like, it's kind of weird because like the Tumblr era was kind of like to now with the Instagram, what Tumblr was to like Blogspot back in the day. So
Yeah.
like the original like blogs were like all on Blogspot.
Yep.
Yeah.
And
I had a
that
Blogspot website.
Yeah, like because you had to put in a lot of effort to run a Blogspot blog.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But like a suitable wardrobe. I don't know if you guys remember that, but that was like I think probably the best menswear blog ever, in my opinion. And unfortunately, the archives are gone.
Oh no.
Yeah, basically the guy that ran it, Will Boki, he was kind of like one of the early people to really independently write about menswear. I mean, he was an older guy, kind of like maybe 10, 15 years out from retirement, kind of. Had a ton of bespoke clothing, had really great taste, was well read on the subject, like as in actually reading books, not blogs, because there weren't any back then. And he also had experience like buying clothes, and had great advice on how to put them together, had really good advice, and he put a lot of people on to a lot of the brands that we're big fans of today, like Drake's, for instance. He was like one of the first people I've ever saw that mentioned Drake's. But anyway, so his blog was a really great read, and he ended up opening a store, a suitable wardrobe store, sold the business to Kirby Allison, and then Kirby Allison shut down the site. And now occasionally, Kirby Allison was going to apparently like repost the archives from a suitable wardrobe, but that only some of them were reposted, not the complete archive. So it's a shame. But anyway, long story short, Blogspot was like what kind of got. I was starting to read some of those, and then Tumblr would put this on is what really took off. So I'd already had like a normal like personal blog on Tumblr just for shits and giggles, and I was like, well, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to just do a menswear only blog and also do it on Tumblr because it was just so easy. As a web interface, it was like pre-mobile era, so. But yeah, it was great, and it was kind of interesting because there ended up being an overlap. This was me just out of college and living in Chicago for the first time, and there ended up being like a group of people just in general on Tumblr out of Chicago, and then there was another Venn diagram of people that were in menswear that were also in Chicago. So there was a group of us, probably like at one point like around a dozen, that kind of met up at a couple bars and hung out. Shout out to Ernest, shout out to Tommy, who's actually bought suits for me at this point.
Nice.
From all the way back then for their weddings. That was actually really cool. But yeah, it was interesting to kind of like meet people just in general from like Tumblr, and then the subset of like people that also were into menswear. Some of them were just like me, not working in it at the time. Other people were people that worked at stores in Chicago. There used to be a lot more menswear stores. We used to have a Jack Spade. We used to have Haberdash, which was a big store, an independent kind of men's boutique. They sold everything from raw denim, Alden's, to like Bolioli and LBM 1911 and Southwick Tailoring. They had a really good brand mix, but Chicago's really not that kind of place and that kind of price point, to be honest. That kind of consumer, so it's kind of tough. But yeah, I mean, I met a lot of people through that kind of little group.
That's so cool.
Yeah, I remember even at one point they were trying to have like New York Fashion Week, like night out, but not just in New York. They were trying to have it in other cities. So there was one for Chicago, and it would be like a bunch of like stores would open up late and they have like cocktails and stuff. You can go there and like hang out, party a little bit. But I think that's another like thing that was really cool too, is like a lot of
stores
had kind of this aspect. So you would go to these parties and these events and you would see the same people over and over as a reason to hang out, get drinks after the party, and kind of like develop friendships that way. And it was great. Frankly, I wish there was more of it. But there's not as many of that now. And I think it's because a lot of the smaller retailers that were throwing those kind of events are no longer around. It's very rare that they have it. As far as I know, there's just in Chicago, there's Notre, which is a little more streetwear and sneaker focused, which isn't really my thing. But they're really the only ones I think throw interesting events and installations. They actually built out their retail space to do that, to hold talks, to have events. It's not a shop; it's more of a kind of gathering place because they're more.
Yeah, that's something I think. I don't know if Menswear. It definitely isn't the first time that they've done it, but there's a lot of those like independent stores, like skate shops, have always been kind of like that, right? Like, there's an aspect of like, they sell stuff, but they also, repair skateboards and repair boards. And so you get a lot of guys who come in there and drop stuff off. Same thing with like record stores, where you have a part where you can like play something that you found or whatever, or like guitar stores or, whatever. And that aspect of turning a retail space into a gathering space is what is really formative for a good menswear community, because it does provide that context. Because I think what we're talking about in the chat is that no one wants to be like the overdressed or wants to make their friends feel like they're lacking something, right? And I'm sure we all have non-menswear friends, but it's also nice to find have those dedicated friends to do that stuff with and go to a place that you can do that stuff. I think that is one reason why LA has been lacking, because there really isn't that kind of a store. The Bloke used to be it, and I would go there routinely on like lazy Sundays, grab a cup of coffee next door and just hang out there. I would even I wouldn't sell anything, but if someone was there like trying on a Drake's tie, I'd be like, oh, you should get that because it's cool, or something. But now that it's gone, I can't think of any other place kind of like that. I mean,
nope.
There probably are stores that are fashion focused, maybe, that lend themselves to being a gathering spot, but maybe not classic menswear. Like the Optimist LA is a spot that took over where Magasin is, and they used to host like Stofa trunk shows. But
nice.
When you go to a party at the Optimist LA, they only pour your glasses half full.
That's funny.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. But I think when we would go,
it took me a second to get that.
When we would go to these Bloke events or whatever, or these trunk shows, of course we would see some of the same people. And anyway, I wouldn't say the lack of those events is probably what inspired me to. I don't need to be friends with everybody who DMs me, but keep it open and show people what it's like to go to these things. And some people have gone stuff like the Gooch collective that used to happen, that now has kind of turned into the Boba Jam at T Spot. And for those of you who don't know, the Gooch Collective was this kind of thing where Garrett Gooch was kind of like this kind of freelance marketer guy who worked with a lot of different brands. So he would put them all in one spot. And then his brother Joshua, who is a famous session musician and really one of the best guitarists I've ever seen. He would get his friends, so it'd be like a little bit of like a trunk show, open house kind of a thing, as well as like live music. And the cool thing with the live music is that it was all instrumental. Just guys like jamming out on like a song, maybe
It's
playing
all improvised
rock.
too.
Yeah, improvised, kind of like jazzy-ish kind of stuff.
And he's doing live streams. I think starting next week, Boba Jam live streams. So if you follow him on Instagram, Twitch. On Twitch, he's our competitor. We're gonna have to take him out. Follow him on Instagram, and he posts links.
Parody, by the way.
Yeah,
I'm gonna check it out.
It was good to have those things because I feel like a lot of people still are very intimidated by wearing menswear out, right? Like, I remember like our friend Michael, right, who didn't really have a lot of menswear friends, and then now, I mean, he's like one of our good friends. He doesn't really go on Discord as much, but he does a little bit more now, and he came to the Gooch Collective stuff. He went to the Put This On holiday shop, which is also another good like kind of a menswear gathering kind of thing that Jesse and Spencer put on. Put this on. But I kind of miss that kind of stuff. I'm really curious to see what happens because I'm not going to host anything. I'm not going to fucking invite people to my house.
Get the hell out of here!
Get out of here, bro. Well, let's talk to someone else now. Jason. You're in New York. You got some menswear buddies, aka Dave.
I have Dave. That's it.
Yeah, you've hung out with Young Chomsky like once or twice.
No, I didn't. I wasn't when he was.
Oh, you didn't?
No, I didn't. No, when we went to dinner, when we met at the bar, it was just Dave and Hal.
Oh,
I guess the Young Chomsky had some better things to do when I was finally
fucking bitches
available that night. What a bitch, right?
Well, I mean, he lives in the city, so I'm sure you'll find another time.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah. Oh, Hal's another good example of like a friend who kind of just like DM'd me and he's like, hey, like if you guys are ever going to be in LA, like, if you're free in LA, I'm like, oh, again, I'm not really one to like do like one-on-one stuff unless we're like really good friends. But I was like, hey, I'm going to go to this thing. If you go there, I'll be there. I'd love to say hi. And he did, and now I can hang out with him one-on-one or whatever because now that we're actual friends now,
Yeah. Shoutouts to Hal.
And before Jason gets on, I just want to say like I think it's interesting that I made a couple of friends on like Style Forum or like like Urban Minivan and Daniel or Ian from Swallow the Baller and Eddie, guys like that where I think Style Forum can be and the kind of more classic hashtag menswear can be a little bit intimidating, especially for me who I only until like the past like 2 years, right? I didn't really buy any like classic menswear brands, right? Like Drake's or anything. But it's still nice, and they still talk to me. And then now we have more in common because I have those cool brands.
Mm-hmm.
So that's another good thing about community, right? You kind of start to get inspired, and you kind of, get.
And then you can show off.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, Jason, tell us about New York.
New York's
the greatest city in the world.
Greatest city in the world. I mean, yeah, I don't really have any like menswear friends other than you guys, and we only know each other on the internet.
That's true.
But I do, yeah. I mean, I know Dave in person. I've been to Dave's house. Dave has been to my house. But I mean, I met Dave on like a whim. I messaged him on Instagram also because I bought shirts from him. Where I wanted to buy shirts from him, and then I did. And now we're good friends.
Oh, congrats!
So,
did you didn't have any other? Who did you hang out with?
Like my girlfriend's friends. I'm not like so here's the thing. I don't leave my apartment very often.
Even before pandemic?
Even before the pandemic. So like I never really had a lot of like in-person friends. A lot of my friends were on the internet or the friends like the only other person I really talked to is a friend of mine who I went to college with. And she was the only person I decided to continue being friends with. So yeah, I mean, I don't have. I mean, this is gonna sound sad. Don't feel bad for me. I don't really
I won't.
have like a lot of like in person friends because I just don't leave my apartment.
So I was gonna say, like, how do you deal with the kind of context of what you're wearing outside of the store? But I guess if you don't really interact with anybody, then you just remove that problem.
Right, or like I mean, like I still like dress, like I would normally. Like I
Yeah.
dress how you guys see me dress. But like we'll go to dinner. I mean, like, and it's not like my girlfriend and I have been together for like 7 years, so it's not like her friends and my friends are two separate things.
It's just
like
these are your friends.
these are our
They're
friends.
both.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I
These
text.
are our
There are people
friends.
that like she met through her. The last job she worked at. Like I text them. And it's not like a weird thing. Like I'll send them things, and people have stayed over
Did
our house and stuff.
yeah. Did you have any other like any other online menswear friends at all or anything?
Not really menswear. No, like my other online friends were like weird comedy weirdos or.
Is that not who we are?
Well, see, that's what's good about the
Different-
group
different
is that it's
comedy
basically
weirdos,
the
right?
same, right?
Yeah.
I've married the two
We
in
still
this
have all
group.
these zingers and
Yeah.
yes and
Yeah,
Stand-up
or like it'd be people
comedians
I'd play
love
like
yes and.
Xbox with,
right,
those,
right.
from way back in the day.
I don't
Your
like
FIFA
how did we
buddies.
become friends? I mean, I know you had to have like we had like DM before, right?
It was like through Rory, because Rory went to Dave's house once, and I was at Dave's house when he went, and then yeah, and then it was like
Rory and Dave had already hung out before?
yeah, because they were the ones that added me to the
The
group.
Facebook group.
Yeah,
Hmm.
because
Huh.
I was in like the a little bit of rest.
Thank you.
Like
I was waiting for it.
Yeah, I couldn't remember.
A
I was
little
like,
bit
fuck.
of rest menswear community on
The
Facebook.
community Facebook page. So like I already knew, and then yeah, they that's how we all got to, and then well, we really sort of. I joined like the Discord, the first Discord with the quarantine cube when we were playing Jeopardy every night.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Back when it was 2 weeks to flatten the curve. A year ago.
Jesus.
That's kind of sad.
No, yeah, I feel like we had talked before though, because I feel like you took a picture at the oyster bar.
Did I?
I feel like, I mean, I know you probably don't want that connotation to a certain someone, but I'm pretty sure you did take a picture eating an oyster at the oyster bar at Grand Central Station. And I think I think I posted something about like, I want to shoot stuff like that, and you're like, oh, I've done that before, and I'm like, well, we got to hang out, and then I think we
Maybe.
started talking from that.
I don't know if it was I mean, I eat oysters in a lot of places because I love
Oh,
oysters.
sorry.
Like,
I'm just
I'm
an oyster
so-
freak.
I literally,
Right.
if someone's like if dollar oysters, I'm there.
I
Yeah.
break for oysters.
But I mean, I think it was cool because
Maybe we did
you were
interact a little bit prior, but
yeah, because I feel like Rory was someone who I think messaged me, and I said, it's one of those things too where like we talk about on the podcast where when you're making menswear friends, whether it's online or in this or in person, you have to kind of be open as a person. I know that sounds like dumb advice, but it's like because you don't want to be too closed off, right? Because
Right.
otherwise you're just not gonna make that friend.
right, and
And
that's my
so-
problem. I'm super closed off.
Well, the good thing, right, is that I tend to like I like being friendly, and I like making
Yeah.
more friends. And so it's good, obviously to
That's like my double-edged sword, right? I'm not as open. I want friends. I like people, like I constantly want to message people on Instagram, but then I don't. I'm like, I don't want to be weird.
I think I've calmed down now because it's a little something, like me now is different than like me 3 years ago when I was still trying to make friends,
Right.
But yeah, no, I think it's really great, and especially also I know we said this in the podcast, but like whenever I traveled when I started taking trips, like to when I went to like London and Paris and going to Japan and going to SF or even New York, I wanted to go to these places, to the menswear stores and talk to the guys there, because it was like, at least at the time, I thought I would be staying in menswear, so it'd be good to
Right.
network, right? It's still like with any industry, it's like who you know, right? And being able to go out there and talk to these people was really cool, and also I won't lie, photographing them so they can have it and repost it. It's also nice too.
Right, yeah. Get
But I
those,
mean, like
get those
that's
likes.
yeah. I mean, it was really cool. Where like I think one time I went to like Trunk Clothiers, which was like a couple of blocks away from Anglo Italian, and meeting those guys and photographing them outside the store, and then they're like, "Hey, we want to use it." I think that was really cool, and the fact I got to like meet guys like Cody Wellama, who like his store is like 5 minutes from my house, and I went there to photograph his vintage ties for an article I was writing. And then I started going there more. I became his photographer, and then he got signed for to be the hat maker for Brycelands. And so the Brycelands guys knew my photography. And then, of course, that means when I went to Japan or when the inspiration, like Kenji was like, "Oh yeah, you take Cody stuff. You have thanks." And and it's just really cool to have been able to do that. And I don't think I would have been able to do it if I wasn't
Right.
not just proactive, but like break out of the shell a little bit,
Yeah,
it's just,
and that's what I'm hoping to do. Obviously, break out more, right? And now soon enough, I'll be, a sort, a face to a brand, and it's like then it sort of gives me more of a reason to break out. Whereas, like right now, I don't really have a reason to like go out and find menswear friends,
yeah.
when I could sit at home and play video games.
Well, that's kind of what the thing is, right? Like, you don't have to go to a menswear store and make friends. You don't have to join online communities, but it just depends on what you want out of your hobby and out of your life. Because sometimes some guys are fine just kind of being insular. Like I know I met this guy. I think he's on Southform, like bespoke. No, bespoke wrinkles. He was like this IT manager guy for really big company. He wore like full Steed Taylor's bespoke, which is really cool English and everything. And he went to like one menswear friend. He doesn't really go out to a lot of different stuff, but he's fine. He's cool doing his own thing, and that's totally cool too. But I don't know what it is. There's this idea about like being around other people that you're friends with. Especially for me, because I felt like I didn't really have friends that like got it. And I'm also very surprised that there's something about our approach to menswear that kind of puts us on the same wavelength as other things, or like there's a lot of the same kind of fandom crossover. There's that comedy thing you were talking about that kind of comes in here, which
too.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. There's a lot of that in here, which is
that's
surprising.
Also why I have so much trouble. It's like, sure, we like menswear, but I can't sit here and talk about like clothing all the time. I can't have friends that it's like all I do is talk about clothing. It's like there's got to be some other stuff here. We got to be able to talk about music like we do. And that's what's so unique and so like what I really like about the group is that we can. All of us are like so versed on basically like anything, we bring anything up, someone else in the group is like a fan of it.
Oh, but it just comes down to being a well-rounded person, right? Like you just gotta, like that's kind of something that's MJ and I talk about with other nerdy people.
That's like another thing, right? It's like you want to find the nerdy people that aren't just about that one thing.
Yeah.
That's I don't want to call out anybody, but there was one time.
Let's call them out.
I don't know, like a couple of years ago.
Drop the link in the bio.
The link.
Yeah. Well, no, a couple of years ago, I was talking. Like someone asked to hang out, and they had lived in Alhambra, so we like hung out. We got boba, but it could just be the whole thing about like just the initial hangout is awkward. You know what I mean? Like when you talk to. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe Spencer can think of another example, but like
a new person
that you're making friends with who probably only know you as well, for me as like Ethan M. Wong, this guy who's writing and always doing menswear stuff. All you can talk about is menswear stuff, and it's kind of awkward, where like I'm like, oh, like what do you like to do? Oh, this person had worked in like, trained as a tailor for a little bit. I'm like, cool. And then they would ask about like, what type of shoes I'm into or whatever. And I think what I would find out is that even though I'm into menswear, I'm never into menswear as much as some other people. Like a lot of what happens, and I know that sounds weird, but like, they'll say like, "Oh yeah, don't you see like those Graziano and Girling shoes on the permanent style?" And I'm like, "No, like I didn't see it." Like, "Oh wait, really?" And I'm like, "Why? Why would I?" You're like, "Oh, they're like the dream shoes, right?" I'm like, I mean, I want some Alden. This is like, kind of like 2 or 3 years ago. Like, I want some Aldens, and they're like, "Oh, really? Like that's all you want?" I'm like, I mean, what do you want me to say?
I'm the same way.
Like that's
like people.
and I feel like
sometimes people reach out to me on Instagram and they like want to talk about like what I'm wearing in a technical stance, and I just, I just can't. I can't have a conversation of, oh well, what other shoes would you wear with it? Like I'm not.
yeah.
I don't have this. I'm not this person. I'm not.
I'm not the man you think I am.
Yeah, like, I think who was it? Like, did Chuck or MGA say this in our Discord, where like they're like, yeah, I don't even tag brands because I don't want anyone to ask me about anything. Like, I just want to post it. And that's I think you're absolutely right with that. And I think that's what kind of comes with menswear, where like you kind of find someone and you think that all the race is menswear, but hopefully through the podcast and everything is that you're supposed to find more in common with them outside of menswear, and it becomes just kind of someone that you can dress up with, but you're not intentionally like, okay, we're gonna wear this fit and coordinate and blah blah blah. You know what I mean? Like, it's just kind of, it becomes slouchy in a sense. You kind of just do it,
Like, I don't care enough to care about clothing, if that makes any sense.
Even though we care about clothing,
right? But I don't care to talk about it in a fetishizing way.
I mean, I mean, it's kind of like a sliding scale, right?
I have to have these shoes because they're like the great. I don't care. Like, I will wear Weegens or Aldens until the day I die.
Yeah,
like, my shoes don't need to be like $3,000 and bespoke. A size 8 Weegen fits me perfectly fine.
Yeah,
and
well, I was gonna say,
once again, it's just coming back to just finding what you like.
Yeah,
yeah.
Well, like, I don't need bespoke underwear, and I don't want to talk about it either.
You don't want
to you about my underwear.
Hold on, I'm just gonna defend.
But I was
gonna say, shirt fabric.
that whole idea about talking really technical stuff with people, that happened in Vintage a lot, I think. But I don't remember what Spencer and I's first conversation was in person. But I know that we were talking about, like, it must have been a little about comedy or Star Wars or something. That was, that was like, okay, this guy's not just about wearing period clothing.
The first thing we talked about was probably like, oh, here's what I'm wearing today.
Oh yeah, of course. But like, eventually it's like,
person, what are you wearing today?
Yeah. Exactly. I mean, Spencer was the first person to show me Comedy Bang Bang and the Eric Andre show, and that was like, that blew my fucking mind. I was like, oh, like, this is like this weird comedy that, like, I've always wanted to, like, I don't know how to explain to people, but
you just didn't know this thing existed, and now it's all you can think of. Yeah.
Exactly, and I think that was really good about hanging out with Spencer, and why with a couple of other vintage people that were also young, it didn't really kind of you don't really have much else to talk about, know. And I mean, and also the thing was about like style form and everything is like, these guys are typically older, but not like in an old like vintagey way, but like in a very like, they're like lawyers and finance
They've
guys.
Been around the block a few times.
Yeah, and but they have families, they're there's not really much else to talk about. I mean, even though like, we all like, there's a couple of Star Wars and Trekkies and everything, and anime guys, and like, Eddie plays video games too and everything. Mark Cho plays video games, but it's still like that kind of generational difference that is kind of tough, right? And I'm glad that
we get Mark Cho on the.
Hey man, I would love it.
Stream.
But before, let's talk to like Henrik a little bit first before we close out with some Drake's commentary.
Yeah, some D.
But I'm curious to your perspective on communities and friends within menswear.
Yeah, you just mentioned like the generational difference. Maybe there is a little bit of that in sense there. and it not like not an internet guy.
Really? Don't say.
Understandable.
Boomer.
Much without, it's not like everything on the internet is kind of like a secondary community, something that you already had outside that then is sort of dragged online. That's sort of how people in their like late 30s feel about the internet. It's like dating was something that happened outside, and then it got dragged online, and then like other communities sort of reappeared online. I don't know. It's I enjoy now like meeting new people through clothes, interesting clothes, like going to a new town, going to like a nice menswear shop that I've sort of looked at in advance on Instagram, sort of saying hi to whoever the owner is, always happy to talk about a few things. And then, you can ask that person, you're in like Phoenix or something, you can ask that person about the town. They'll probably know some other stuff. And it's like a nice way to connect with a place. So I often do that while traveling, actually. I just like you to like drop in on somebody. Or like I said, when we went to London, to go into Anglo-Italian or Trunk or something and just like talk to Jake or the other and some of the people working there. Hang out for a bit and so on. And then at least that makes it easier to like message them online and have questions about it later or something. And that's nice, but none of that is sort of center of gravity for anything. It's it's like a thing that's just a fun outlet, and a lot of stuff that happens in the past year, like joining this Discord and stuff. I don't know if without the pandemic, I don't know if I would have spent that much time on a Saturday or something like that.
Here you are.
Here I am. It's weird. Some of the other things I do is like very far removed from this. I don't have like a professional interest in menswear and stuff like that. But it's been weird to see. A year ago on Instagram, maybe I did like post a month or something, just to like archive for some other friends that I don't talk to that much like in person anymore. It's like more like an archival feature of when I was traveling or doing something. But then I just needed something to do during quarantine, and suddenly like some people started congregating around it, and it's been kind of strange to see it grow and stuff. So and people ask me questions now, and I'm I'm less annoyed about that. Maybe because I am like a educator of sorts. I sort of have like a public service thing. If someone asks me a question, I tend to, in a Socratic fashion, at least I feel like I'm obligated to answer. But it's been fun. But it's not. It's like a primary way to seek out people, like in the way that you describe, like trying to get better at something, or like to grow, to use forums to find people and stuff like that. It's more the other way around. Like you have this interesting conversation. I want to read something about this shoemaker or something, and I find it, and then you notice that people, same people write about this, that write about some Drake stuff here and there. And then you make some jokes on Twitter or something, and then like something like a community, I guess, springs up. But it would be strange to like to mistake that for like you say you have to meet someone. You're not going to do like a one-on-one meeting with someone who DMs you, but something might grow out of it if there's like another incident. Like
Exactly.
If I'm in LA, I'll
get murdered.
Look up you guys if I'm in Pasadena or something again, but who knows?
Hey, the thing about being in SoCal is that we can drive. So if you're somewhere in LA, we can drive to you.
I'll take some photos or whatever, but I don't know. It's
5 boroughs for me.
But as a friend, it's like as like a defining social dimension or something. Maybe not, but that's like. For me, it's like a win-win. It's like if it enriches your engagement with something, it's great. If it doesn't, then that doesn't matter so much either. maybe that is a generational difference. I can't get like very idea that's something that is primarily online is like your innermost mode authentic being is like very alien to someone who's a little bit older. So I can't even get in like proper online arguments and stuff, which people do, because if someone yells at me or makes fun of me online, it's like that's I think it's funny.
What was it like to brush that off? That's crazy. Yeah, no. I mean, I think one of the easiest ways that I think is the biggest difference is that for a long time, a lot of my romantic stuff happened online. And so friendships, or maybe not friendships, but being able to connect with people through a hobby and, you know, on a regular basis, you know, before Discord, since that's a step down from romance or whatever, it seemed a little bit, it seemed like, okay, I've done the other stuff before, so I can do this now. You know, I can have a friend, you know, like Spencer, who, you know, before we would just message each other, then eventually we started hanging out lots more and go to menswear events, and then we hung out when it's not menswear events, you know. And yeah, it's an interesting, like, you know, we talk about this also in like in one of my other group chats, I think, with people who don't really use Discord, but we talk about like parasocial relationships, and that's, you know, the kind of you kind of think that you're closer than you are just because you guys are like mutuals on Instagram, or you guys talk online. And I'm definitely wary of that, which is why I say stuff like, okay, just because we DM doesn't mean that we're gonna be friends forever or that I'm gonna hang out with you. Especially after that one time I got Boba, where it's a little bit kind of, I didn't feel like I got enough out of it. You know, it kind of felt like this is probably just a me problem, but I feel like sometimes when I meet up with people, they kind of just ask me questions. And
yeah, I feel like I'm kind of ruthless like that in most books. Like, if there's something in it for me, I'm probably not going to be into.
Yeah, you know, because I mean, I think I'm just a lot pickier now. Yeah, no, yeah. I mean, it's just, I think I don't know. There's always like those infographics or stuff, that tweets that people put where like, if they're not positive, cut them out. You know, that kind of shit that you see on Twitter all the time. But it's kind of true in that regard, where, you know, it can kind of backfire in menswear because everything is so niche. You kind of just assume you guys are going to connect because you guys like clothing, but you have to also remember, like, you guys are people. You know, you can still choose whether or not you're going to be friends or not.
Kicked into multiple Facebook groups for liking clothing.
Wow.
But you know, yeah, I think,
Publicly.
you know, yeah, I hope people don't get it twisted. We're like, yeah, obviously seek out stuff, but, you know, keep good manners and a good, like, you know, so not manners maybe,
listen,
but like, you know,
manners maketh man.
No, but yeah, I mean, it's kind of one of those things where if you see us hanging out in person, we're probably good friends with these people, and if you don't see us hanging out, we're probably don't want to hang out with those people. So, and there's always a difference between, like, you know. Oh yeah. But I mean, there's also those kind of things where, like, you know, maybe we go to a menswear event, but like Spencer, Ethan, and MJ hang out, but that's not a menswear thing. Like, that's just us because we are actual IRL friends over like 5-6 years now. You know, like Spencer's been to my birthday parties when it was still at laser tag, kind of a thing. And MJ's been there when I had a pirate themed one in my backyard.
So let's bring that back.
I think this was Wednesday.
Hey, I think the new thing is airsoft, right? Or paintball birthdays. That's what we have to do when everything opens up again.
If we could just get over the coronavirus.
I know,
If you guys can get here by June 12th,
All right.
my 25th birthday, we can shoot people, whatever.
Hey, I just
With
want to
airsoft, not with real guns.
Phrasing.
Yeah. Hey, we don't want to get mad.
Oh no, you mean photos, right, Jason?
photos.
Yes, shoot photos.
Yeah, got it.
Yeah, if I could just take a cocktail of all of the vaccinations, like right now, I would, because I just
give me the Johnson & Johnson, give me the Pfizer, give me the whatever.
Yeah. This 2-3 week
you want to roll your dice with that one?
lockdown has been going on for too long.
Listen,
I really want to roll my dice with the
I'll take
AstraZeneca.
the Russian one that they made in like 3 months. Give it to me.
Vaccine jungle
jungle
juice. Hell yeah.
Vaccine.
No,
jungle
this is a
juice.
little off topic. This is another Ethan weird social experience thing. But I remember I went to a college party, and I don't really like. I mean, I don't know. I drink way more now. With especially if it's like with Spencer. But like back then, like a house party really wasn't my thing, and they had the jungle juice container happening. Everyone's like, yeah, fuck yeah. And I just took the Sunny Delight, I put that in my party cup, and I just drank that because I didn't feel like actually drinking.
Well, I mean,
in
jungle
retrospect,
juice doesn't taste like alcohol.
like-
It does taste just like
yeah, I know. I mean,
like weird,
but it was just kind of like that
disgusting
thing
sugar
where
water.
I had the opposite thing, right, where Nick Carraway just gets rip-roaring drunk because he couldn't talk to anyone at Gatsby's party. I'm going to stay rip-roaring sober and not talk to anybody at this party, okay? So
Yeah,
let's
Stone
That's what I
Cold.
do all the time because
But I had the jungle juice at the Halloween party though, and that was fine.
Yeah.
And as you heard, me and MJ talked to donuts to these girls, and when we turned around, they were gone. So,
that
You know what?
is
We ate
so
the rest
funny.
of the donuts.
And we
between
ate the
two
rest- yeah.
donuts.
that's it.
Yeah.
So that's you tell me what the who
Who's
really
the real
won that night.
winners?
That's what we get for being
Yeah.
nice, right?
Yeah. But anyway, guys, thank you for sharing about communities and
Thanks for
Menswear
talking
friends
about
and everything
friends.
like that.
Thank you for being a
If
friend.
you guys, that's right.
And
if
you got
guys want to
friend
listen
in
to the full podcast episode, it's available on all platforms right now. Read the essay and see all the pictures of all the hangs that we've been through in the past like 2-3 years. Really makes me sad that we haven't done anything like that since like I think Inspiration LA was like the last one, right? So
Yeah.
uh,
Well, one day.
that's it. One day we will be back to that.